Welcome back to Soul Shift, the podcast where real life, science, and soul all get a seat at the table. I'm Mindy Gorman-Plutzer, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Allie Anderson. If you're new to Soul Shift, this is a space for people, especially women in midlife, who are navigating big shifts in their bodies, their relationships, their work, and their sense of self. We talk about the moments that change us, the nervous system behind it all, and how to come home to yourself in the middle of it, the sometimes messy middle of it. Today, we're talking about something that touches more lives than we realize: betrayal. Not the dramatic, obvious betrayals we see in movies, but the everyday ones that shatter trust, rewrite our sense of safety, and leave invisible wounds that never quite heal. Or at least, that's what most people believe. That betrayal is something you survive but never truly recover from. And our guest today is here to tell us that's not true. And she has the research to prove it.
Dr. Debi Silber is a PhD researcher and the founder of the PBT Institute, the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. Through her groundbreaking study, she uncovered 3 critical discoveries. Betrayal is a distinct trauma unlike any other loss. It creates measurable condition called Post Betrayal Syndrome, and healing follows 5 predictable stages. The 5 stages of betrayal recovery, with most people stuck in stage 3. Debi is a 2-time TEDx speaker with over 2 million combined views and a 2-time #1 international bestselling author. And she's the host of a globally top-ranked podcast called From Betrayal to Breakthrough. She's been featured on Fox, CBS, and Dr. Oz. She built the #1 betrayal recovery certification program for coaches and practitioners worldwide. And she's the founder of National Forgiveness Day, which is celebrated every September 1st. I think that is really cool.
Welcome to Soul Shift, a sacred space where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life come together in perfect harmony.
Each week, we explore the gentle art of transformation. Soul Shift holds space for your beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect human experience.
Meaningful change doesn't have to break you open. It can unfold softly, like morning light.
Together, we'll uncover tools that honor your truth, share conversations that touch your soul, and celebrate the exquisite complexity of what it means to be human.
Your presence here is a gift. Let's shift with grace,
with love,
together.
Dr. Debi Silber, welcome to Soul Shift.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
So, Debi, let's start at the foundation. Tell us about betrayal. Why does it hurt the way it does? What does it impact? And what does it create inside of us that's different from other kinds of pain or loss?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I define betrayal as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule, and every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on that person, the deeper the betrayal. So, for example, a child who's totally dependent on their parent and the parent does something awful, that's going to have a different level of impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret or your coworker taking credit for your idea. Still betrayals, different level of cleanup. But what is so distinct and different about betrayal is, think about it, and this was actually the first discovery. Let's say you lose someone you love. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, life will never be the same. But you don't go back and look at that relationship and question the relationship. It doesn't change the history of everything, right? It doesn't affect your ability to trust. It doesn't, affect your sanity. With betrayal, it does. And also, when you, let's say you lose someone you love, the self is intact. You're grieving, you're mourning the loss. But with betrayal, there's a total shattering of the self. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, they're all destroyed and they need to be rebuilt. Something else that's so different about betrayal too is this. Think about it again, using that example of losing someone you love. When you do lose someone, people rally. What can I do? How can I help? What can I bring, right? With betrayal, there's so often, so much shame and humiliation and embarrassment from something the betrayed didn't even do. So they're struggling and suffering in silence very often. And to make matters worse, very often the betrayed is covering for the betrayer. They're so loved by the family, the friends, the community. So they're not even getting the support they need from the people that could possibly be there for them. So now here they've had one of the most painful of the human experiences, and they're acting like it's like a regular Tuesday. And the kids are like, "What's for dinner, mom?" They're going to work or whatever. And it's like you broke your leg and you're running a marathon. It's impossible.
I love the way you in the beginning created the analogies and really led us to learn that betrayal is so very nuanced depending on the level and the degree of betrayal. So thank you for that. But speaking to what you were just talking about, how it's a different type of crisis than loss, than grief, I imagine then it requires a different way to heal.
Mindy, I love that you said that because so often people are struggling for so long, and there are many reasons why they could be struggling for years, decades, a lifetime. We'll talk about that in a bit. But one of the biggest reasons why is because any coach, counselor, therapist who's, they're saying, well, trauma's trauma. No, it's not. So what they're doing is they're using, let's say, a grief protocol, a sadness protocol, an anger protocol, something that wasn't designed for betrayal. Because with betrayal, what happens is we're experiencing this cluster, this collection of physical, mental, and emotional symptoms so common to betrayal. It's known as Post Betrayal Syndrome, which, you mentioned in the beginning. But very often we're experiencing all of them at once. So a protocol that would work for, let's say, grief or loss is not a fit at all for betrayal. So, one of the things we're getting ready to publish, it's the biggest study on betrayal ever conducted. And we have the research and over 100,000 people, and that's coming out really soon. And one of the things that really stopped me in my tracks was I had asked a question on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is it to you to heal? 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 was what almost every single person said. So it's not like these people aren't trying. It's not like, they're like, whatever. No, they're trying, but they haven't accessed a protocol for betrayal to predictably move them through it.
This is really fascinating. And you talked about the post-betrayal syndrome. Okay, from a nervous system and a physiological perspective, I find this really fascinating, right? And you've kind of spoken to a little bit about what post-betrayal syndrome is. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? Like, what are you seeing physically, mentally, emotionally? And then what I really want to know is, it's so common, yet it's so unrecognized. So I'd love for you to talk into why is it so unrecognized?
Yeah. And thank you. It's opportunities like this that have it become more recognized, because when these discoveries showed up, I'm like, well, how do you keep this to yourself? So it's just that it's unknown. It's that it's unfamiliar. So we can have these symptoms, and especially, and I'm happy to share the symptoms with you, especially if it happened long ago, people assume it can't possibly be from the betrayal. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe it's just aging. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is directly tied to that betrayal. And so people are exhausting themselves, going doctor to doctor, counselor to whatever, to manage these stress-related things, symptoms, illnesses, conditions, disease that emerged as a result of the betrayal. And they're going down all these different rabbit holes, when if they actually just healed the betrayal, every single one of those symptoms would heal. We had a woman in our program, and she was in her mid-80s, and she had a 70-plus year digestive issue. 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue of some kind: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, reflux, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. It was a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her, something like that. So you can imagine, over the course of 70 years, the protocols, the supplements, the medications, the food, the everything, for her just to resign herself to believing, I have a bad stomach. It's who I am. 2 weeks into healing the betrayal, she healed from a 70-plus year digestive issue. That's what happens when you deal with the root cause. Yeah. So I'm happy to share some of the stats if you want to hear them.
I'd love to hear them, and I know our audience would love to hear them. Yeah, for sure.
Imagine we've studied over 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country's represented. Now, these stats that I'm sharing, as much as I'm sharing the symptoms, I want you to hear these numbers, and that report that we're getting ready to publish, it's even more. So they're even higher, but from what I have access to right now. So 78% constantly revisit their experience. And when I say revisit their experience, I'm talking about multiple times a day. 80, and this could be if it happened years ago, 81% feel a loss of personal power. So think about it. When you don't feel a sense of personal power, think of the decisions you're making, what you say yes to, what you just accept and tolerate. 80% are hypervigilant. So we talk about the nervous system. What's that doing to your nervous system right there? Right? 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've ever had a trigger, you feel like you are right back there at D-Day. Discovery Day. They are absolutely traumatizing. Okay, so some of the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% have extreme fatigue. So you wake up, you're exhausted. Your adrenals have absolutely tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, very common to eat, emotionally, right? I mentioned the digestive. Some of the most common mental symptoms, 78% are overwhelmed. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine this. Let's stop there. You can't concentrate. You're exhausted. You have gut issues. And you're raising your kids. You're taking care of elderly parents. You're going to work. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And you're bouncing back and forth between those two all day long. Let's read a few more. 84% have an inability to trust. And I'm talking about self-trust, trust in others. Think about what that's going to do to every decision you make when you can't even trust yourself. 67% are preventing themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. So according to this, and what I think is like 73% now, just let's take it, 70%. That means they are not forming deep relationships. They're keeping the bad ones out, but they keep the good ones out too. Big wall goes up. So think about this. Like, look at what now they're preventing themselves from having those deep, loving, intimate relationships because of what someone did maybe 30, 40 years ago. Just a few more. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. And I'll just wrap it up by saying, these stats, you didn't hear me say 20%, 30%, they're super high. They're also not from a recent betrayal. This could be from that parent who did something when you were a kid. It could be from your partner, who broke your heart in high school. So that person may not know, care, remember, they may not even be alive. And here we are, decades later, with these symptoms because it was left unhealed. The good news is you could heal from all of it, which was the third discovery.
Wow. And you know what I find so fascinating, I'm sure you do too, Mindy, is all of those symptoms are what I see in my practice.
Yeah, me too.
All of those symptoms are why people come to me for, I need help with functional wellness. I do functional wellness and I need help in my overall health. And the missing piece may be some kind of betrayal in their background, right?
So often. And that's why it's interesting because, I certify a lot of coaches and practitioners, and it's so beautiful because it could be like, let's say it could be a business coach and their client is coming to them for confidence and they're giving them these amazing strategies and solutions. But when they know that confidence was shattered because of the betrayal, they are so much more effective. Like in your case, it's the kind of thing where they're coming to you for these symptoms. But if you know the language of to notice that there could possibly and potentially be a betrayal at the root, think about how much more deeply you can serve that client or patient. I just see such greater outcomes when it's paired, when the betrayal recovery is paired with the great work that coaches, counselors, therapists are already doing.
And our work really starts with story. In Allie's case, working with women who have chronic illness. In my case, working with people with eating disorders. It's all about recognizing the messaging and then helping them to release it. But this is a segue for the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, unhealed betrayal. All right, you've given us unbelievable statistics, really mind-blowing statistics about how betrayal impacts so many and how the betrayal can be from way back. So unhealed betrayal, basically when a person never really heals, essentially walking around with an invisible wound. And I know from what I've seen with the women I work with, very often they don't label this as a wound. It's just who they are. The messages they've gotten have become their belief system. And I hear very often, well, this is how I was raised, or this is what I was told. And very often in these cases of unhealed betrayal, the betrayed is fearful of betraying that message because in that case, they assume or perceive they are betraying the betrayer.
Mm-hmm. You're so right, because to question what we've been taught is scary. Because if we question it, then we may have other questions. Those questions may cause what we've created to unravel.
Exactly.
It's almost like, ever had a sweater where there's like a hanging kind of thread, and you're like, if I pull this thing, the whole thing's coming down. And we kind of make a decision, I'm just going to leave it this way. Because if I start questioning what I've been told and what I've been taught, my whole worldview will likely shift. And I don't know if I have the bandwidth to take that on.
Yeah.
So common. It's a reason why people intentionally and unintentionally keep themselves in a very stuck spot, because it's the familiar known. It's not good. It's just familiar. That's it.
Right. And then in my work, when there are behaviors that have developed as a solution,
Mm-hmm.
right, rather than the problem, the fear is, who will I be without this behavior? Because I might have to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
And that just creates that incredible vicious cycle.
It reminds me of a million years ago when I was in health and eating and all of that, nutrition, all that. I remember working with a woman, morbidly obese, and I just asked her one day, and she said, why? And she said, I eat so I don't feel. Because if I stop, I'm going to feel. And if I feel, I won't stop crying. And it's so common. That's what we do. But there's a saying I have been using the 34 years of my career. I have yet to find a topic it doesn't apply to. You ready? Hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's one of those two. As painful as it is to numb, avoid, and distract ourselves, what's happening is that is easy now, because hard later, the problem is still there. Whereas hard now, we are taking on every thought, behavior, action, habit, belief, all of it. Easy later. We're making those changes that really serve.
Touche. Let's talk about the 5 stages of betrayal recovery. Give us an overview of what those are and what it looks like to move through them.
Sure. So this was the most exciting out of all 3 of the discoveries for me anyway. And what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if we're going to fully heal, we will move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at each stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing's entirely predictable, which there's a roadmap for it. So I'll share the stages so briefly, and everyone will know exactly where they are. Okay, stage 1, this is actually before it happens. And in stage 1, we're so busy, raising the kids, going to work, doing all of our things. We're kind of on autopilot, and that's not a bad thing. We have so many things on our to-do list, and we're doing a lot of thinking and doing. So we kind of turn down the feeling and being, because that takes time. But we do that intentionally and unintentionally. Like, for example, could be, we turn down that intuition because it's going to slow us down and we have too much to do. We also do it intentionally. It's kind of similar to what we talked about before. If I confront my partner, my boss, my friend on what I think I just saw or felt or know, everything will unravel. And I don't have the mental, the emotional, maybe even possibly the financial bandwidth to take that on. So I'm sure there's a likely explanation. I'm sure I'm overreacting. It's got to be something other than this. Very common we do that right there. Very common to stage 1. So now stage 2, shock, blindsided, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. But here's where one of the most important things we do is ruminate. we go back and we're looking. Now, ruminating is really important. What we don't want to do is marinate. Like, we need to do that for a while, but we can't do it for too long. But when people say, just move on already, it's critical that we do that. And we're doing that for a really important reason. Because we're doing that because if we can figure out what we missed, we can prevent it from happening again. We have completely lost any sense of safety and security. So we are looking to feel safe. I mean, think about it, especially with trust. People say, well, you need to learn to trust again. Start with a low stakes thing. Tell a friend a secret. That is so off. And here's why. We all have a system, our own system to discern trustworthiness. Like, let's say someone says or does something, I don't know, 50, 100 times, whatever it is. We decide, you know what? I can trust that person. They have gotten my seal of approval. I can trust them. Now they shatter that trust. As terrifying as that is, what's more terrifying is we look at it and we say, my system that I've created is fundamentally flawed. My compass is broken. I can't trust my system. You see? So to say, trust someone else, we can't do that. We don't know how to trust ourselves. Anyway, so stage 2, we're blindsided. We've ignited the stress response. We're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Post Betrayal Syndrome symptoms start right here. Our worldview is shattered. The bottom has bottomed out on us. A new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. But here's the thing, and I bet a majority, most, if not all of your clients are coming to you in this stage. And here's why. When you're in stage 3, you've created a functional life again. You're able to go back to work. You're able to take care of the kids. You're able to do the things, but it's behind a very protective wall. It takes a lot of vulnerability to trust again. It takes a lot of vulnerability to put yourself out there, and to just be vulnerable is terrifying. So we're functioning, but it's with a flatness. And here's where most coaches get it wrong. The client says, I think I'm good. I'm fine. And they are. They're infinitely better than where they were. So the coach, the counselor, the therapist, like, okay, call if you need me, right? And meanwhile, they're denying each other the most beautiful part of the whole experience, the transformation. They didn't know there was a stage 4 or stage 5. So they let them go before the transformation. The client's thinking, I guess this is as good as it gets for me. The coach, counselor, therapist is like, I don't know, something just didn't. My stuff works on other people that wasn't working on them, right? Very common right here. Here's also where we have repeat betrayals. Here's where we have the most symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. We are living a stage 3 life and it stinks. And here's where, right here, we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. And we're doing it because, like, this stinks, but I have to get through my day. You see? So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 20 years, 30 years. And I'm telling you, Mindy and Allie, I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they'd look at me like I had 2 heads. Say, it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3. Does that make sense?
You know what? I hear my clients' voices. What's past is past.
Yeah.
As I shared before, but this is how I was raised. It's just so insidious to everything that we do.
Yeah, they are just desperately stuck in stage 3 and they don't know there's anywhere else to go. So they plant roots here, they park here, they create a new life here.
It's a new sense of safety too.
Exactly. And it's like they've been wearing these foggy glasses for so long, they don't even know they have them on. Yeah. Can I take you to stage 4?
Please.
Okay. So if you're willing, willingness is a big word right here. You need to grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. But if you're willing to let go of the story and all it gives you, you can move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where we acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. It is very forward moving, very action oriented, very much like, what do I need now? Who do I want to become? What was I tolerating that I'm no longer willing to tolerate? what have I outgrown? So this is the hard now, right? Because we are taking it all on. We take all the parts we love and we leave behind everything that no longer serves. And we create a version of us we didn't have access to beforehand. So we're trying new things. We're doing new things. And here's where also, if we were in like some lame support group where everyone was just complaining and commiserating, we're done. That, let's say, well-intentioned, well-meaning therapist where we only feel heard and validated and understood session after session after session, we're done. If we've been trying to get the betrayer to change, we realize that no, we're done. And so people say to me all the time, is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, and that it's your opportunity, right? There's so much here that we have access to now. Anyway, when we're in this place and we sort of make all these changes and mentally we just get to a strong place, we move into the fifth most beautiful stage, and this is healing, rebirth, and the new worldview. The body starts to heal, self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now we do. The mind is healing, all kinds of new rules, new boundaries, all of it. And here's where we see new relationships, either with the person who hurt us in a very different way or someone entirely new. We didn't have access to that earlier. We see new levels of health, beautiful levels of health here, new passion projects, new businesses. This is all stage 5 stuff.
Wow. Those 5 stages make perfect sense to me. But if I could take us back to stage 3, because I know you've said that people get stuck in stage 3. If they're so numb, right, and they're avoiding this and they're distracting and they're doing all the things so they can stay in stage 3, how do they even know they're in stage 3? Like, how do we help our clients become aware, or even people listening on this podcast, that they're sitting in stage 3 right now?
Yeah. If you're fine, that's a dead giveaway. You're fine.
Okay, I'm fine.
Functioning does not mean good. Or if it's like, well, I'm good as long as I don't think about that person. I'm good as long as I don't see them. No, that's hardened. That's not healed. If you're struggling with symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, that if these symptoms showed up after the experience or the shattering of trust and they're still with you, that's stage 3. If you're living behind these walls, if there's a flatness, that's stage 3. If you're unwilling or you feel incapable of trusting, that's stage 3. Like when you're in stage 5, you're so different. There's this confidence because it's all earned. You have absolutely intentionally and deliberately recreated yourself. But I will tell you too, there were 3 groups in the study who didn't heal. So this is how you will know you are absolutely stuck in stage 3. Also, one was the group that they had their story, they were sticking with it. It was like, nope, this is who I am. Deeply stuck in stage 3. They didn't heal. The second group, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer, anti-anxiety medication. They were emotionally eating, drinking, whatever. It may have made the day a bit easier to get through. Now without a price, they didn't heal. The third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequence. So whether it was out of financial fear, not wanting to break up a family, religious reasons, that was a big one. They just did all they could to look the other way. I saw 2 things with this group: a further deterioration of the relationship, and 2, this group by far was the most physically sick. Interesting. Your broken heart can't take that. So that third group, they go back and forth between stage 2 and stage 3 because very often they're re-traumatized because nothing has really changed. Like I'll never forget, a woman wanted to work with me and she said, Dr. Debi, my husband has been having affairs the 30 years of our marriage. He has no intention of changing, but can you do something to my brain so it won't bother me? Oh, no, So there's a lot of people look at it and say, it's the familiar known, and this is all I know. And instead of rebuilding, like instead of death of the old and rebirth something entirely new, I'll keep just patching up the old. Reminds me, can I share a little analogy here? Yeah. You'll see it so clearly. So imagine like a really old house. Here's the difference between resilience and transformation. Let's say there's this old house and the old house needs a new roof. You get a roof. That's resilience. You're restoring it, right? Or let's say it needs a new paint job. You paint. That's resilience. Okay. Here's trauma. Here's betrayal and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels the house. Your new roof's not going to fix it, and your new paint job's not going to fix it. Right now, you have every right to stand there where your house once stood and say, this is the most tragic thing that's ever happened. You'd be right. And you can call over everybody you know and say, isn't this the worst thing you've ever seen? They'd all agree. And you can mourn the loss of your house until your last breath. You do. You had that right. However, if you choose to rebuild the house, you don't have to. But if you choose to, why would you build the same one? There's nothing there, right? Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? Make it better, make it more beautiful. That's the opportunity in stages 4 and 5 that is so often missed for the familiarity of stage 3.
Yeah. I often use the analogy of a cracked foundation. You can't rebuild on a foundation that's cracked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if someone's listening right now who is feeling moved by this conversation, who's carrying an unhealed betrayal, years, decades, where do they start? What do they need to do to move forward? I would imagine your answer would be they need to take agency of the issue, right? Recognize the problem. You can't change or heal from what you don't see or feel. But what would you tell somebody who is so fearful of going here?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is list all the benefits of staying stuck. And people may say, oh, benefits? No. Oh, yeah. You're definitely receiving benefits for staying stuck. You don't have to do the hard work. You don't have to learn how to trust again. You don't have to have those confronting conversations with yourself or with someone else. There are tons of benefits. You don't have to do the hard work of taking on these big emotions. So there are lots of benefits. And then I would say, once you do that, see how it serves. So Ellie, you had asked me earlier something about how do we know if we're stuck. Can I share 4 questions, which I invite everybody to go through also? The first one, am I numbing, avoiding, and distracting? If so, how? Call yourself on it. The second question, what am I trying not to see? Like, be honest. Am I pretending not to see that health issue that needs my attention? Am I pretending not to see my relationship is in trouble? Am I pretending not to see I hate my job? Whatever it is. 3, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I keep this going? Play it out. Take that health issue, play it out 5, 10 years, that relationship issue, whatever. And then the 4th question, what can life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now? I'm not saying it's easy, but transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth.
I love that 4th question. What can life look like?
Yeah. Wow. Exactly.
And just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We just haven't created it yet. That's all. And when you think about it, the only benefit of what we're staying with is it's something we know. Think about the thousands of things that were once unfamiliar that you took on and now they're familiar.
Sure.
Right? This is one of those things. But your best life is waiting for you in stages 4 and 5. Like, why would you settle for a stage 3 life if there's a proven, predictable, research-based way to move through the stages and get to stage 5? And that doesn't mean you have to do it with me, but just why stay in stage 3? Like, you didn't go through all of that just to kind of recover. You went through the biggest reckoning of your life, likely, to transform. That's the opportunity.
Well, I really hope that people listening to this podcast know that there is a stage 4 and a stage 5. That is so very important, especially if they are coming to terms with stage 1 and 2. Because if they're stuck in stage 3 and they're listening, then we're asking them to get in touch with stage 1 and 2.
We want them to know where they are and move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And the possibilities that are out there. And not what should I be doing, but what could I be doing?
Yeah. Not for anybody else's sake either. It's so often the betrayal is like, why do I have to do all the work? I didn't do it. Well, of course you don't have to, but you have such a beautiful opportunity here to rewrite all the rules, recreate you in the best, most beautiful way. Like, of course you don't have to, but why wouldn't you want to do that?
Exactly. It's taking them out of that victimhood, that victim mindset. Yeah. So let's just make sure listeners have the key takeaways. Okay, so let me share what I've taken away. And then I would love for you to let us know if there are other truths that you most want people to remember. Number one, which I think is earth-shattering for a lot of people, betrayal is a different type of crisis that requires a different way to heal. It's not like other losses. It requires specific understanding, specific tools, and betrayal is extremely nuanced. The 5 stages that we went through, and there are 5 stages to go through if we fully heal from betrayal. But to fully heal, you must go through those 5 stages. Most people are stuck in stage 3, never moving forward, and I think we've explained why it's safe. And the collection of symptoms so common to betrayal, it's known as Post Betrayal Syndrome. Physical, mental, emotional symptoms that sabotage your health, your work, and your relationships. Did I get them all?
As far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's what matters most.
We certainly have covered a lot in this short period of time, and I think it's really powerful too. And Debi, you have so many incredible resources. You've got your podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough. You have your TEDx talks. You have your books. You have the PBT Institute, and you have certification program for practitioners. So if listeners want to connect with you, where should they look first? How should they contact you? How should they reach out?
Thank you. I would say everything is at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. Have yourself one fine time. There's plenty of stuff there.
Awesome. And do you have any special offerings you want to share with our listeners today?
We just came up with a new program. It's so interesting because I'm on all of these podcasts and stages and everything. And then people would come into our programs and work with my incredible coaches. But they were like, but wait a second, I know you and I want to work with you. So we've simplified our program. It's now called Betrayal to Breakthrough Live with Dr. Debi. And it's our signature program, which literally moves people through the stages with me going live with them. It's an 8-week program, and we're really proud of it. It is very simple compared to what we had, but it covers what people are looking for. And people are so far, it's only a few weeks old. People are really enjoying it.
Wonderful. That's a great offering.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Debi. Thank you for your energy, your warmth, your wisdom, and your groundbreaking work, and for bringing light to something that's been hidden in the shadows for so many for so long. You validated that post-betrayal syndrome is real and that there is a predictable path to healing, and we don't have to stay stuck. I mean, this in itself is life-changing. And what strikes me is how many people are walking around with unhealed betrayal, not even realizing that's what's sabotaging their health, their relationships, their success. So this conversation is going to help so many people finally name what they've been carrying.
Thank you so much.
And to everyone listening, if you've recognized yourself in this conversation, if you have ever been betrayed and you feel like you've never fully healed, you're stuck and you don't really know why, please know there's a way through. Dr. Debi has mapped the path, and we don't have to do this alone. And as we always say here on Soul Shift, small shifts create big transformations. And sometimes the most powerful shift is simply naming the wound that's been quite invisible for way too long. Betrayal doesn't have to be a life sentence, and healing is always possible. So please, please, please check out Dr. Debi's TEDx talks, especially the one that is called Do You Have Post-Betrayal Syndrome? And listen to her podcast. The name of the podcast is From Betrayal to Breakthrough. And if you're a coach or a practitioner, explore the PBT Institute certification program, because this may be the missing piece so many of us are looking for. And of course, if you're new here, welcome to Soul Shift. We're glad to have you in our community. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and join us every week as we explore the moments that change us, the nervous system behind it all, and how to come home to yourself in the middle of it. Thank you, Dr. Debi, for being with us today. Mindy and I have enjoyed this conversation tremendously, and we're very grateful for you.
It was always so pleasure to be in your orbit. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time, keep shifting your mind and igniting your soul.
Thank you for sharing the sacred time today.
We hope something in this conversation touched your heart
And offered nourishment for your soul's journey.
Remember, transformation is most effortless when it happens one tender shift at a time.
Until next week, we invite you to carry one insight from today into your life.
Not as a task.
Think of it as a superpower to yourself.
If something resonated, we'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment below.
Your words ripple outward, offering connection and comfort to others walking this path beside you.
If Soulship feels like home, please subscribe and consider leaving us a review.
Your support will help us reach more hearts that need to hear they're not alone.
We're holding you in love, so know you're not alone. Your journey matters.
May your heart be filled.
And may your path be filled with grace.